Disabilities in the media next on Retro Serial. Hey everyone, welcome to Retro Serial. I'm your host, Ian C. On today's program, we have a longtime listener and longtime viewer on YouTube, John Collins, who I invited to come onto the program because he has some disabilities, and I wanted to talk about disabilities and how they've been portrayed in the media through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and of course a little bit before and a little bit after. And that's, as I said, and I was going to get to this in the video, there are times where Retro Serial takes a more serious turn. It's really about growing up Generation X, and this is lighthearted but serious at the same time. But I'm covering some of the same material that I covered in the interview, and I don't need to cover it and then you hear it all over again. We are just going to get straight into the interview. But before we do that, please do me the honor of liking this video and subscribing to this YouTube channel and share it on your favorite social media. Those three things right there mean the world to me. They really do. And they're free for you to do. If you're listening to this on podcast form, you can also like it, subscribe, share it on your favorite social media. Those mean the world to us, as I've already said. But also, if you're on YouTube and you want to know when these things are available, hit the bell notification and you won't miss a single episode. And if you're just listening to this on audio on the podcast only, I don't care. I'm so glad you're listening. It doesn't matter if you listen on YouTube or the podcast. I'm just really happy you're listening. But I always invite you to the YouTube page because there's more content on the YouTube page. I just actually uploaded a video last week about 5 things you didn't know about Frasier, which, it's more of a YouTube thing, so it doesn't quite translate over into a longer form podcast. So if you're interested in what we're doing here on the podcast, you're going to like what we do over there. But again, I just am really grateful that you're listening. And if you want to go a step further, whether you're listening or watching and listening, you're always welcome to hit the links below to join our Patreon group. We have 2 levels of support right now. We have the Cornflake Club, which is just $3 a month, and it's just a tip jar saying, hey, we like what you do at Retro Serial. Please keep it up. But if you want to be on the Insiders Club, there's the Honeycomb Hideout, and with the Honeycomb Hideout, you do get most all videos and most all podcasts at least 1 day in advance. At least advance enough that you can say, hey, I listened to it before everybody else did. And if you don't want, somebody taking money out of your account every month, I understand that, but you still want to give, like I want to give one time. I like what you're doing. Here's a little change your way. We do have Venmo for that, and it's at Singularity_Productions. And with all that said, let's get into today's topic. Well, hey everyone, welcome to Retro Serial. You've already seen the introduction to what we're doing here, so I won't belabor the point, but other than to introduce my guest into the room with me always is co-host and special guest, Thrash Pondo Pons. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Ian. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Yes. Well, you know what? I was going to say something there, but I'll introduce our special guest today, and then we'll start our conversation. Because I thought, well, if I was saying something anyway, it'll make sense. So we have our special guest today, John Collins. How are you doing, John?
I'm well. I've made the big time.
Right on. This is your second appearance, not on my show, but on the Good Stuff. I like to call it the Good Stuff Gang.
Yes.
You were on the lead. You were on the flagship, right?
Yeah, I was. Yes. We had what I believe will be a similar conversation there, but yes, it was a good time also.
Yeah, that was I really enjoyed seeing you on that, and actually gave me the idea to do this program. And a lot of times that and I still hope this is lighthearted. We keep things a little lighthearted around here. We talk about mostly entertainment and music and movies and television and culture. But every once in a while, we take a little bit of a serious turn. But even in a serious turn, I hope that it stays to a degree lighthearted, at least as lighthearted as we can make it. Without it, being insulting or something like that. I don't want it to be so lighthearted that it's insulting to a serious issue. But what I wanted to do is because I want to talk about culture as well. And so we're going to be talking about TV, we're going to be talking about music, we're going to be talking about movies, but we're going to be talking about how people with special needs have been depicted in those genres, in those medias, throughout what we do here in Generation X, 70s, 80s, 90s, nostalgia. And I have to start off, first of all, with the very first question that I have to ask. And that is one of the things that I've noticed just in general is that the name of what we refer to people with special needs has changed over the years. And when I was a kid, we used to call people with special needs handicapped. And then it changed to something, and then it changed something else to somebody with special needs or challenged or something like that. What do you like, John? How do you frame that in your mind?
Well, again, I just speak for myself, so I don't speak for the whole community of people with disabilities or whatever the term. But I don't really like special needs because it belabors the fact that somehow we're different than everyone else. And I think that everyone has needs, right? Mine are no more unique to yours than yours are different to mine, but we all have needs. So to say they're special, but I mean, yeah, to your point though, it has evolved over these 30 years that you like to talk about from all kind of words. So it changes every 3 to 5 years, it seemed like. So vernacular changes, from time to time, and even people with disabilities don't keep up with the vernacular sometimes, as
Do,
well as.
so how do you like to be? Or do you like not to be referred to as anything but John?
Well, I think John is good. I'm not John with the disability, no more than you're Ian with the violently challenged nature. I mean, you're not.
Oh, he's
that,
got
right?
jokes already coming out swinging hard. Okay.
But no, but you're not that, right? You don't want to be no. But you don't want to be referred to as you don't want that attached to your name.
Right.
You know what I mean? So John is good, but obviously I have my needs are different. I mean, just like your needs are different. As Thrash, but I am glad the language has got more sanitized over the years. It used to be very, very undelicate, so it's still truthful now, but it's not as harsh as it was before. So that's the best way I can say it. But I don't mind disabled. I don't like being I don't like my name and then disabled. I just
Right.
like being and then but I don't mind the term uh, disabled.
Okay. All right. So that, I mean, I want to be sensitive to that. So I don't want to use a name that, is going to make people happy or people upset or whatever.
No,
And when I was a kid, and this is kind of shows the growth of the whole situation as well, because when I was a kid, we didn't care what we called people with disabilities. We didn't care. Like we called them handicapped. And that was like the first name that I grew up with was handicapped. And I remember meeting a family, and I was living at this Christian commune at the time, and and the guy's brother said, "Oh, that's my sister. She's handicapped," and I don't think he meant anything negative by it, but I think that as the community grew, that they started saying, hey, we don't like that term, right? Is that kind of how it went? The
Yeah.
community itself said, we don't like that term. We prefer this term or whatever.
Here's the problem. Not problem, but yeah, that's why it changes all the time, because the community, changes their mind, off like other communities change their mind about things too. So,
Right, right.
it changes over cultural sensibilities and all that sort of thing. But so yeah, it changed over. But certainly, like you want to talk about, depictions in media changed a whole lot between what you were saying. So
Right.
yeah, along with language, the depictions changed as well.
Thrash, do you have anything to add to the conversation as of far? I don't want to exclude you from what's being said here.
Justin, I'm glad my system just came back on. For some reason, I was glitching really
Oh,
bad, and it's back on now. But I'm like, oh, I really hope I can get this stabilized before he can ask me a question, or I'll be hideously embarrassed. But I seem to be doing okay now. John, one thing, I have we talked about this before? Are you a Rick and Morty fan at all?
a little, not a whole lot. No, I don't think we've talked about this. No, as
Because
far as Rick, no.
because Rick uses a term which I think is actually kind of adorable. He uses the term differently abled. And I thought that was kind of cute because as you were saying, we're all different. We all have different needs. So it's a more uh, it's a less caustic way of labeling those who have needs that are different.
Yes, but here's the thing, Mister Thrash. I guess what I'm saying is I don't like any phraseology before my name.
So you don't want it. It shouldn't define you. It's. I see what you're saying. Yes.
To me, it doesn't matter what the phraseology is. It just is. I am who I am. It is what I encounter, but it is not who I am.
Yeah.
You are John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are John.
And of course, I of course, and I think that too. And I think some of the sensibilities have grown over the years. One of the things that, because my wife worked with disabled children her whole life, and
Right.
she was really upset when people would say something, especially something like this person she like, one of the things that really used to set her off was people would say Down syndrome kid or
Yes.
somebody with Down syndrome.
Yeah.
And she said, no, he has Down syndrome. He's, he has it. That's not who he is. He has that. And so
I'm even more radical. I don't even like the phraseology has, because we don't own it. It's something I'm not going to stop every line, but you know what I mean? I'm just educating. Does the has thing make sense? Because I don't have, I encounter, I deal with, that kind of thing. I'm not speaking for her saying that. I'm just saying it's not you see, it's not a disease,
Right. Well,
it's
and if we can turn the tide then to whatever we want to label this to,
I'm glad I will say I'm glad she defended those folks,
Oh yeah, for sure. As we can turn the tide toward um media at this point.
Yeah.
And we all kind of identify with people in media who, who we identify with, who are like us, who are similar to us, whether that be needs or not needs or whatever. I remember when I was a kid, because I grew up very chubby. I was a very chubby kid. And it wasn't until it's been 10 years now that I've lost 90 pounds.
And you kept it off. Amazing.
Yeah, I've kept it off. 90 pounds gone and off. But I struggled with it. Some years I was thinner than others. Some years I did better than others. But it was really 10 years ago that I finally decided to keep it off. But that said, and I don't want to equate this in any kind of demeaning way, but I would always see the chubby kid in the movies, like in Goonies. You'd see Chunk in Goonies, and it was like totally okay to make fun of that kid.
You know what I mean? And that transferred in my life in reality. People had no problem fat shaming me whatsoever. You know, they had no problem, poking fun at my weight or, doing something like that. I mean, I just, that's just how it was. I mean, that's just
Right.
how it was. And I think that we all, for good or for bad, we all look to either the song, the person in the band, or the person in the movies, or the person on TV who is like us. Or we go, oh, I'm like that person there. I'm like, we go, oh, okay, all right. And again, turning our attention toward media at this point, I remember kind of the first like encounter that I had with this thing in media was with the deaf culture. Because as I've said before, I've had my pulse on the deaf culture since I was about 4 years old. We had a deaf we lived next door to a deaf couple, and that's where I first learned some basic sign language. And then I remember watching like Children of the Lesser God, and Marley Matlin on there. And I want to take it to you. When was the first time you really remember identifying with somebody on TV who may have had a disability? Well, or music or whatever, where we're talking Joe Cochran or something like that. Take us back there.
I'll tell you, I got to bring up your relative. I don't know, you're touchy about your relative, but your relative said that, and I agree with him, that whatever the label is, it doesn't change what the person goes through. So the label doesn't. So I bring that up because it was in media, right? So it was in media, so that's what he made a comment about. Labels don't change the person; they're still who they are. Or they still go through what they go through. So so that was one. But in my everyday life, probably Jerry Jewell and Facts of Life or
Yep.
Marley Matlin, who was from my hometown. I didn't know Marley, but God bless those who did, because wow, she's very beautiful. But as far as that goes, the one thing I did, as far as changes in the time frame and what I saw is that they went from disabled people were always in the special. What was the term? In the special episode, what was the term? The the 80s always, like you said, the 80s always had on this episode, but then they didn't. They never reoccurred. They just showed up, and they were the storyline, and they were the we're gonna fix them, we're gonna heal them, or we're gonna learn some profound lessons from them, and then we're never gonna hear from this character again. So in the that's what I got in the 80s anyway. We could go show by show, but that's pretty much what they all did. In that time. And then
How did you feel about that? How did you feel when you first saw Jerry on the Facts of Life? I remember the first time I saw Jerry on the Facts of Life, and I remember the episode very specifically. I still remember. I don't know if I've ever even seen this episode since it aired, but I've got an above average memory, and so I remember. Go ahead.
Let's don't leave out Thrash. That's all I'm saying. Don't leave out Thrash Pondo. That's all.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna leave him out, man. What do you want? Do you want to say something? I'm going to go back to the Facts of Life episode that I saw, but go ahead, Thrash.
Well, I couldn't agree with him more. It seemed that one of the great things about the 70s and 80s is that they delved into these topics, because I don't think they were even touched before then. But you'd have an important episode or a touching episode, and you'd think, oh, they were introducing a new character, and they weren't. These people would have their 30 seconds of fame, and then we'd never see them again. There was an amazing episode of Laverne and Shirley where they entertained at a state hospital and ended up making friends with all the people who are staying at this hospital, and they learn that, well, the people here are really no different than us, and it's a really nice episode. And then they never go back. They never talk about any of them. None of them ever come to visit. And I'm like, wow, I thought they were friends. What happened? And it becomes almost like the elephant in the room. That it's like, well, are you trying to create interest in this topic, or are you just throwing this group a bone and then we're all going on with our lives? And it can be. I can see how John. I can see how that would be insulting.
Yes,
to people.
It was. And also, I think I've said this before. I don't like in general when shows bring out these good any side characters. Golden Girls was big on this too. They would bring in these fabulous actors and actresses, not necessarily disabled disabilities or anything, and then we never see them again. All these good arcs that had someone to meet on them that could have been sub characters at least. Every fifth, sixth show. That their friends don't leave them in one day. You know what I mean? Like in real life, that doesn't happen. So that's what I felt about it. It wasn't even like you're saying, Thrash. It wasn't even about exploring the issues. It was, let's have this episode because we have to fill time, and special episodes were huge in the 80s. So that's what happened. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, that was a common theme, as we're all saying. The common theme was a special episode, and it wasn't always to deal with somebody with disabilities. I mean, sometimes it was to deal with racism or drug use or something like that. But then the same thing happened. Somebody would be introduced. I remember one episode of Family Ties where it was racism, and they had some black friends who were friends of the Keatons, and they were going to move in, and then their house got trashed. The black folks' house got trashed because they were bringing down the property value, and then they dealt with that, and then we never saw them again. We never saw them again. They were not on any other episode or anything like that. So I don't really. I mean, so that was common. I don't think anybody was singling out people with disabilities on that. That's just what they did. I mean, you brought an episode in and you did it, and that was it. It was gone.
No, but they were using them to soothe their ego. They were using when you have a one episode thing, it becomes a trope. Thrash is big on the word trope. So by definition, if you use them for a one episode concept, it becomes a trope, and it did in the 80s. That's why that's why we're discussing it in the way we are, because it was always a one-off thing. It was. But yeah, so tropes are negative. Usually tropes are negative.
Very much so.
So, but go ahead and back to life. You were going to say, Ian.
Well, I can't think of a positive trope, I guess. It's like, let me tell you about this really good trope. I don't think a sentence has ever started with that. No, well, we're bringing it back. You'd mentioned Jerry, and I just remembered the Facts of Life episode, where, because in the Facts of Life, Blair is the cousin of Jerry, as I recall. And she comes in, and Jerry, the girl who plays her name's Jerry, right? That's the girl.
Yeah, Jerry Jewell.
Yeah, Jerry Jewell. And her name's Jerry on the Facts of Life. She's a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she comes in, and it's so cheesy, because Blair has a problem with her, and Blair is upset, and then they're like, and they're finally going to have it out. And Jerry says, oh, I'm always living with this disability, and you never give me any thanks and stuff. And then Blair says, yeah, but I've been living in your shadow, because all you got to do is pour a glass of milk. And everybody says, oh, wow, look how Jerry's doing, and all this stuff. And so I can never do anything good enough to surpass that. And they had this, I don't know, this reconciliation where they finally got it all out on the table or whatever.
Yeah, that was weird. It didn't, sometimes, well, in any TV show, sometimes the storylines are thin. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't equate to Jerry's acting or Blair's acting, or they can only write what's said. They can only put what's in their mouth, what was written on the page.
Right.
It's what it was. But they actually, those two, uh, Lisa Winchell, who played Blair, and Jerry Jewell, were actually very good friends in real life, and so they, in fact, Dave did a video how they were roommates for a long time, so they knew each other well, I assume. So uh, Jerry and Lisa. So, but moving it forward a little bit to the '90s, though, that's when it started to get more prevalent about we need to bring people with disabilities in the fold more. So the biggest one, the biggest one, the best one that I can give that example was, of course, Life Goes On.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, and it's sad that we can only point to there's very few, but it's Life Goes On, and Christopher Burke, who played Corky, had dealt with Down syndrome, and and it was a very, for the time, late '80s, early '90s, it was a very good portrayal of it, because at least the person actually had the challenge. They didn't try to bring in a person that didn't have anything. So at least the person actually had the disability. So, and it wasn't always focused on him. He was just living his life like a. They had some episodes where they could see it didn't have to be a special episode because he was part of the cast, right? So it could be
Right.
interwoven into the material, right? So it wasn't so in your face. What do you say? Lessening? Is that what you say? Preachy? Is what you say. And
Yeah.
nothing was preachy on that show, because it seemed like it developed correctly, because he was in the show. He was in the.
It was
He was
just
in
part
the.
of life. It was just part of life. Go ahead, Thrash. You would look like you were going to say something.
I've actually been dying to ask you this, John, because in my research, I've noticed opinion seems to be divided. There have been many people who portrayed persons with disabilities over the years. In many cases, they have actually had the disability in question, but in many more cases, particularly in the past, they've just been actors who've been portraying it. What is your opinion specifically on people without the disability basically miming it for the sake of drama?
Oh, well, I will give you the opinion, and I will give you my opinion, because in this case they agree. when I agree with the opinion, I'll give you both. But the the right the right and correct opinion is that the actor should always, in my opinion, have the disability. Because it you can show acting ability if you have a disability. You don't have to be a non-actor to show that you can act. If you're an actor, of course you can act disabled. I mean, it's not hard to act disabled. Just act drunk and you know, just drunk and you're there. You put them in a chair and they're there's the and of course nobody deserves. And let me just get this pet peeve, and we're talking about disabilities. No one deserves an Oscar just because they played a role that was disabled. Now, if they were awesome in the role, then maybe, but they don't deserve an Oscar just because they don't deserve to get nominated just automatically because they had a role with disabilities. And that's just my opinion. But yeah, my opinion is that everyone should try to have people with disabilities.
Well, okay, listen, I have to disagree to some degree on this. Okay. And so I don't mind like Ben Affleck playing a blind man for Daredevil. I don't think you should have a blind person playing Daredevil because the character's blind. I just don't.
I'm not saying I think Thrash and I are discussing when the theme of the picture is disabilities, not Daredevil. I mean, Daredevil is the theme of Daredevil, not his blindness is part of it, yes. But I think when the piece calls for a story about disabilities, like
Scent of a Woman. The Scent of a Woman about a blind man
Yes.
with Al Pacino. Yes,
It could have been a blind person.
in this case.
It could have been a
It could have. I mean, I don't think a blind person should have been excluded. I mean, I don't think they should go, oh, we're going to exclude him because he's blind. But if Al Pacino gets the role, Al Pacino gets the role.
I'm not saying
They probably never auditioned any blind people for the role.
Right, sir. That's the point. They didn't even think about this. Okay, think about Children of the Lesser God, right?
Great movie. Love that movie.
Can you think of anybody better than Molly Matlin to be in that role?
No, I can't think of anything better. But I also think there's a sense in which she's a great actress, no matter what. You know what I mean? And I think she got the role because I think in part because she was deaf, but I think in part just because she's a great actress and she could really identify and bring to life this character. And as long as you've got those two there, I'm all on board. I mean, I'm not in exclusion of any kind, but I do think that there's a sense in which somebody's trying to create a piece of art and then they want to put the best person in that art that person thinks, and they shouldn't be hindered by any community in order to do that. That might be my a very poor opinion of it, but I just think that, like, so for example, What's Eating Gilbert Grape? We have
could have been
what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio playing a kid who has, and I don't know what the particular disability that he portrayed, but I was like, I think he did a phenomenal job at doing that. What's that?
He did. He portrayed somebody with intellectual disability. But I think what I'm saying is that I agree with Thrash. I'm not disagreeing with you at all about Ian about that. I'm saying the problem was and is that they haven't always considered people. I'm pretty sure with disabilities for those roles. That's the main
right
of that. Like in fairness to your point though, Ian. When you talk about My Left Foot and you talk about who was the main person in My Left Foot?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Okay. In fairness, I can't think of anybody better than Daniel Day-Lewis to play that role. So it can go either way, but I think it was just about having people in mind, letting them audition, seeing where it goes from there. So
right, exactly. Well, I wanted to ask this question though, and I'm sorry to bring it back to, well, we don't have to exclusively keep it to the 80s or 90s or whatever, but I was thinking about that episode with Blair and Jerry. And I was thinking, what is there, I'm trying to think of how to put this. Like, was there any role or any episode with somebody who had a disability where they were bringing it up as an issue and you're like, yes, that's the issue. They nailed it. That's exactly what I'm going through. That is exactly, what's between me and people without or differently disabled. That's exactly what it is.
Okay. As far as my first vivid, I'm my first vivid memory of that would be probably not that I associate myself, but anything in life goes on because I got picked on a lot. I got all the tropes about all of it, and he did too, and I don't associate my disability so much with that, particularly the challenges he had, but I mean that was a good visual interpretation of what people, because they have instant thoughts about something. They don't know the person. They have instant comments or opinions or whatever. So probably that one because you got to remember it was also one of the longer running programs with disability focus. On so I think it ran for like 6 or 7 years. I can't say that I didn't watch it all the time, but just knowing that, okay, I guess what you're looking for is a tactile feeling. Knowing that he was on the show warmed my heart because he brought us into a part of culture. He doesn't even think that deeply of his role than I do probably, but knowing that he was a part of the landscape, was big. And Jerry was big too, but she only had four episodes, so it was a concept art, in that case. But his was but then moving to the '90s, I'm just jumping around. I can't go 10 shows or 10 shows again. Go into the '90s, then you had Speechless.
Okay, I don't remember that show. Tell me about it. Was it a show or a movie?
It was a television show on ABC.
Okay.
It had Minnie Driver. It had the and the main character used the communication device and had cerebral palsy and used the wheelchair and does have all those things, and it lasted 3 or 4 years in recent times. Did you? Oh, Thrash, did you see that film, that show at all?
Sadly, no, I'm not familiar with it.
I'm kind of remembering it now that you mentioned it. Yeah, let me look it up here really quickly because I'm kind of remembering this now as you're going along.
Yeah, it lasted. I don't. Maybe it was 2000 something. I don't know, but it was big. It made 3 years or something. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. Of course, I work a lot at nights, so I don't watch primetime TV.
Yeah. Did you look it up, Thrash?
I looked it up here. Yeah, I do remember that, and it did have a kid who was in. Yeah, I do remember that show. I don't think I've seen a lot of episodes because it was later.
That's why it lasted 3 years. Was it 2000? I'm sorry. Was it now? It was kind of nowish, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's 2016.
That's not in your channel wheelhouse, but again, but that show got preachy. See the difference? It got preachy because the mom was always fighting for him, and she was the the helicopter mom and all those sort of too clingy and all those things. But I don't, Thrash. What about you or Ian? Do you have other examples of things that really caught your attention in this realm that we're talking about?
Well, the big thing for me was years ago, I had a friend who was in a wheelchair. It wasn't because of anything he was born with. He actually, it's actually kind of a sad story. He was a Vietnam veteran, and people assumed that he was wounded in the war. He went through the war completely unscathed, and then afterwards was in a motorcycle accident, which paralyzed him. But people automatically assumed that he was wounded in the war, and he felt compelled to explain, oh, no, this happened afterwards. But long story short, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, by the way, that happens to me all the time, not about the war, but, I always have to explain that no, it wasn't when the motorcycle, when I wasn't drunk one night, then I have to go in the whole thing. But no, so that I deal with that all the time. Go ahead. It was an accident. You said, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's quite all right. I guess it's not uncommon, but he actually turned me on to a comic who I'm sure you might be familiar with, man by the name of, if I get the name wrong, I'm sorry, John Callahan.
Yeah,
the cartoonist. Yeah. And I fell in love with the works of John Callahan, and I imagine people who could actually empathize with him more and share more of his experiences would feel even more so. But the first thing I remember is one day he was picking me up after work. We were going to go hang out somewhere, and he was wearing a shirt, and it's the old style Western posse, and they ride up on a wheelchair, and one guy looks at it and says, "Don't worry, he won't get far on foot." And I was in hysterics. I was like, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to laugh at you. He goes, no, I wouldn't wear it if I didn't think it was funny.
Now, I don't mind myself. I'm progressive. I don't mind a comedy about those sort of things. George Carlin, I love. I'm sorry, I know that's your thing, but George, so I don't mind pointing. So a lot of people with disabilities get really offended sometimes at comedy or satire, but I think you learn from comedy and satire because it's bits of truth in there. It's
Mhm.
it's zingers, but it's bits of truth. So I don't mind it at all. In fact, I had, like I was telling you, Thrash, and you too, that we had Josh Blue, who is a comedian with disabilities, at our function at where I volunteer at. So, you know, and I think, so I have no problem with that. So,
Well, that's
um,
good. Yeah, I mean, um, yeah, I'm glad that there's a little bit of a thick skin to some degree,
for me, yeah,
when it comes to it. I know probably it's not right across the board. I have to bring up a
yeah,
couple of movies that dealt with some things, and probably one of my favorite movies about this whole or it's not about it. It just is Mac and Me. Now, Mac and Me is an awful movie. I mean,
yeah,
it's a horrible movie, but the lead character is in a wheelchair, and they don't even reference it.
that's
It's
right. That's
that, and I
right.
love that for that. I
Yeah,
love it for that show. He is just a kid.
yes,
Yeah, I mean, and of course, you come in on it in the middle of the family and everything, so they're not going to reference it, just like any normal family who has a
right,
son who's in a wheelchair. They've already dealt with this is just part of everyday life.
right.
And so Mac and Me was one of those shows that, or one of those movies that I was just like, oh, that's really cool. I really enjoy watching that for that very reason, because it's just like, this is just how it is, and because my wife worked with people who had special, or who had disabilities, um it didn't, I mean, it wasn't even a thing for me. For me, it wasn't even an issue, and I would go to the school all the time, and either we dealt with children a lot who had autism, some
Yeah,
deaf, some very very early on. She had a school with kids who were in wheelchairs, um and so that was just like no big deal. I mean, for me, they were just kids, you
kids
know
that use yes, kids that use wheelchairs. Yeah,
yeah, I didn't differentiate from them at all.
yeah.
Now, there is one thing I have to ask you when we're talking about, um especially like the show with uh what's the guy's name? He played Corky,
Christopher Burr.
Christopher Burr. What bad parents, though, by the way. I mean, I just I can't let that slip by. I mean, you have a child who has Down syndrome, and you're going to call him Corky. I mean, isn't this kid dealing with enough already?
Well, is
And
it? It's Corky. It's not Corky. It's Corky, isn't
I
it?
don't.
I thought it
It's
was
short for
Corky.
it's short for Cornelius, by the way.
Oh, really?
Oh, it is okay.
Okay. But I was promised Corky, and I had an uncle whose nickname was Corky, and the only reason they called him Corky is when he used to try to swim, he would bob up and down in the water like a cork.
Right, right.
So, but it's not quirky as in odd.
Right. But
So,
another movie that I have to mention that I based my whole other talk on the flagship about was Math. That movie rocked me to my core. I don't need to see Math. It was brilliant. It was everyday life. He had a challenge. The mom was, like I said, like my mom had the same drug problems and except the motorcycle gang, she wasn't in that. But I mean, but I have you seen Matt at Bond? Is
I
it not
Oh,
certainly
brilliant?
have
oh,
that movie.
Mask. Yeah,
In
Mask.
Mask. That movie is actually
One of my favorites.
it's just it's one of those movies where everyone who's in it is at their best.
Yeah.
I mean, Cher's at her best. Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
Sam Elliott,
Yeah.
yes, he's at his best. Just everyone does an amazing performance. And I got to there's one scene in that movie which always destroyed me. And it's because when I was younger, I had a modest speech impediment.
Yeah.
It still pops up every now and then. I still to this day can't say the word Christmas tree. I have to like gear up for it. There are some words I still stumble upon. That's why people say you talk like a DJ. It's because that's how I overcame it. I found if I spoke very deliberately, like I was on the radio, it
Right.
kind of went away. But it was one of the many barriers I had to cross in my youth. But the super badass biker, the one that's everyone afraid of, that strong, silent, tough guy, we found out the reason he's silent in addition to strong is because when he congratulates Rocky, he has a very profound speech impediment. And he has to practice all day just to say, "I'm very proud of you." And
Wow.
the first time I saw that, I'm like going like this. I'm like, "Oh my god, that's why he doesn't talk, because he has a speech impediment, like me."
And yes, yes. So that is key. So in what we're talking about, representation, I think is really what we're bouncing around. It's very key because everybody needs somebody they can realize, themselves in movies and films and all those sort of things, and so I just think Mask is one of the best films ever made. I know they had onset difficulties with the director and share or something, or what, but who doesn't have problems with directors? So, but and also, just and the way he wasn't like it wasn't a special thing. He was just living life, and it wasn't like, it wasn't like Forrest Gump where his disability was the thing. Where with the
Yeah.
mom, the mom had to be with the other guy to get him into regular school. Forrest Gump, the disability was a thing. In Mask, it was the layered concept. It was just woven in perfectly. It wasn't preaching to you.
Well, were there any movies or television shows? Well, or singers too. Joe Cochran.
Yes.
Yeah.
Joe
What's that?
Joe Cocker.
Oh, Joe Cocker. Sorry. Yeah. Has or had he passed away? Didn't he?
Yes,
Yes, he passed out a few years ago.
Yeah. He had a disability as well. So I know he had what?
Cerebral palsy, like I do as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I know this goes across all genres of entertainment. Was there, and now we talked a little bit about a movie and television show that you thought pretty much nailed it. Is there any that doesn't nail it? Is there any that you were like?
There are hundreds. We can't go down that list. There are hundreds. I mean, anything that makes it tropey, anything that makes it cheap. I don't like too cheesy. I don't like disability porn. Where look at us with the it's a thing in the disability porn. Not porn as in meaning. Look what we're doing with this person, or look what a hero they are because they poured a glass of milk. That you're something to overly hype the goodness of the person. Not porn physically, just like something that makes people feel good for no reason. You know what I mean?
I say
overly
Saccharine.
Yes, overly saccharine, or just doesn't even. So there are hundreds there. I mean, I couldn't. There are so many because they just think the entertainment industry thought they were just doing a solid for so long that if they
like if they put somebody in there who was something, they're like, oh, we're really helping you out. We're really helping you out.
Well, and I'll tell you, there was a movie that I thought was horrible, that was not overly saccharine, but which my wife and I liked, or we watched several times, but I it has problems, is The Other Sister. I don't know if y'all have seen The Other Sister, but
no.
But yeah, Juliette Lewis and Diane Keaton, Giovanni Ribisi, the guy who owned the bar Cheers,
Sam Malone or Ted Danson.
Danson, yeah.
No. The guy that owned above
Oh yeah, yeah. He was in one of the Dylan Hunt sagas. Yeah, he had a crush on Carla, the waitress in the
Huh.
TV show. I can't think of his
yeah.
name to save my life, but I know who you're talking about.
So what they do wrong in that film is that, first of all, people with disabilities are not as wealthy as those people. And not everyone lives in a country club and and life is not like, let's just, one of the lines in the movie is that the two people with disabilities say, "Who invented sex?" I think it was Madonna. Disabled people don't really, people with disabilities don't say that. I mean, it was just, it was just things that
Huh.
other people,
Interesting.
other things that people think people with disabilities, with that kind of disability, might say. It was too sappy and perfect, and it wasn't, it was the love triangle, that not triangle, but they always break up and get together, and it's a mess. I mean,
Huh.
I one that got it right though. One movie that did get it right that you need to see. I'm giving you homework is Rory O'Shea Was Here. Have either of you seen that movie?
No, I never even heard of it. Tell us the plot of it or how it
Oh,
relates.
oh, it relates because now nobody in there has a disability either, but this is one I give an exception for because uh, they have they're over in England, Ireland, somewhere, and they run a institution for people with disabilities, and I'm not for institutions, obviously, but it's a coming of age story between two people. One has muscular dystrophy, and the other has cerebral palsy, and
Hmm.
it's how they kind of team up and they get out of the facility and work on life on their own, and
Wow.
so and they teach a really good lesson about independence, and it's not a kids movie at all, it's an adult, like, 18 to 24-year-old type movie. It's but it's very good. What's her name from the mom from My Left Foot is in it.
Oh,
She's
wow.
awesome.
Wow. I didn't know that. Yeah. It sounds like a really
Brenda
good show.
Brenda Frickers.
Hmm.
You know,
I don't know. I'm trying to look it up now. Let me see here.
Bob, do you know who Brenda Frickers is?
It's ringing a bell, but I can't place it.
She was also in Home Alone 2 as the woman on the street.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. The street girl. Yeah.
Woman. She was 65 at the time, so she was but she was a homeless woman that helped him, and she plays the mom. No, in the Roy O'Shea Was Here. She plays the woman that runs the institution. Did you pull it up?
Now, do you remember a movie called Do You Remember Me with Fred
Do,
Savage? Oh, no. When You Remember Me. That's what it's called. When You Remember Me.
no,
And
what is that about?
well, Fred Savage, it's got Kevin Spacey in it and Fred Savage is actually plays somebody who's in a wheelchair. And it's, I mean, it's a very difficult show to watch. I mean, basically, it's about how I think it's set. I don't know if it's a true story or not. I really don't know if it's a true story or not, but it's set sometime back either in the 70s where these things were kind of coming to light, where people who had disabilities were really being treated poorly in institutions.
Yeah.
And basically Fred Savage just is too much for his mom to handle, and so she drops him off at this institution. And I mean, and he's treated super poorly, like put in a dark room, nearly starved to death. And finally, the guy that's kind of like the hero of it all, Kevin Spacey, comes in, and he's taken these kids to he gets lawyers involved and stuff, and he starts taking them to concerts and things like that. I think they go see Led Zeppelin or something like that. But those institutions where they had children, with where parents would have, I mean, this was a real thing where parents couldn't handle their kids, or didn't want to handle their kids. I should say that more properly. They didn't want to handle their kids that had disabilities. They would drop them off at these institutions, and these institutions were just, I mean, nightmares.
Yeah. What you said about media, so I'll bring it to when you all were kids. I'm a little younger than both of you, but when at least Bob was a kid, he remembers, I'm sure, Willowbrook, the problems at Willowbrook. Geraldo Rivera made a whole documentary about it. It was the same situation, and he won all kind of Emmys for his reporting. And I say you, Bob, because you're in Boston, which is not far from New York, where it was. Do you remember hearing about Willowbrook, the institution that was?
I remember Geraldo Rivera doing his expose on it. Yes, that would have been
70s something.
I want to say, actually, could it have been in the 80s?
No,
I think I was in high school at the time, but I'm sure you're right. But I remember his expose on it. Yes,
I think it was mid 70s, but
that could be. I would have been towards middle school, if not middle school, and things kind of mushroomed memory wise.
That is some real world stuff, that documentary as far as media. And so you were asking. So I wasn't born then, obviously, but I was born in '79. By the way, that's why My Sharona means so much to me, because it was number one, not the story, the song, because it was number one on the week of my birthday. That's why.
What song was that? What song was
My
that?
Sharona.
My Sharona.
By the Knack.
So, and the chords and the hook, the guitaring and the hook, just the music is awesome. Not the language, but but yeah.
So do you consider yourself a Gen Xer then? I didn't know you were that young. Or do you consider yourself a millennial?
Again, everything mushes together. I'm a semi-fat guy who was born I don't know when I was born in '79, so it means I enjoy Saturday morning cartoons, if that's because I was big in the '80s. Cartoons were big in the '80s, so I guess I don't prescribe myself to, but because I don't keep track of the labels of that, but I guess if I'm born in the '70s, that makes me a Gen Xer, right? I guess I don't.
Yeah. I mean, really 84 is the cutoff, but I mean, 80 is the cutoff to some, and it really just kind of depends. Some people, they go like 70, like 8 through 84. Some people call themselves Zennials, or the Oregon Trail generation, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really just kind of depends on how you feel. I mean, but I mean, I know for myself, I squarely identify as a Generation X. I don't identify as a millennial at all, and I certainly don't identify as a boomer. I mean, the things I was into, watching Star Wars growing up, watching Saturday morning cartoons, I mean, these were all, and and the sarcasm really starting to set in. These were all things that I really identify with. And being a little late on technology to some degree, technology was one of those things that developed as the way it is now after I was a child. I mean, I'm still pretty good at it, but I mean, I'm not intuitive with it. A lot of kids that were born in '84, they're intuitive with technology. They just kind of know how it works. And I don't. I have to learn. I'm good with it. I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm not great with it, but yeah.
I'm not technical, so I'm not good with any of that stuff. But I just want to give your fans, our people, a disclaimer. I have not gained tremendous amounts of weight. It's just the angle of the camera. I'm just letting everyone know. I'm not Chewbacca. It did not happen. I'm just saying. I'll do better on Monday. We do a Monday show, but it's just the angle of the camera.
Right.
But
Well, we won't do this show on Monday. We'll do another show on Monday. We'll do this show the Monday after, because I have to still record an introduction and edit it and all that stuff, which will take a little bit. So
okay, so 2 weeks. Okay.
yeah.
Well, they'll see me better on that Monday than we do. But yeah. So I think. But as far as disabilities, going back to media that we're talking about, I think they're doing a lot better now. I know we don't delve into now, but they just
That's
had
okay. We can delve into now. Go right ahead.
they had a movie, just won a Oscar or some sort of documentary film, Crip Camp, that I talked about on the other show with Dave,
Mhm.
where they talk about being a mid-60s, late 60s summer camp for people with disabilities, and the counselors were hippies. So y'all need to watch that. That's really a Bob sensibility. I think you'd enjoy that, Bob.
Okay.
I think Bob and I are more aligned, sort of, in our sensibilities, maybe. But you both can watch it. Yeah.
And what's that called again?
Crip Camp.
You got it. I'm
It's
writing it
on
down.
Crip Camp.
Just like
Okay.
crippled, only Crip Camp.
Gotcha.
It's a straight document. It's a documentary, not a film. So it's meaty. It's very good. It's all about how these people came of age at this camp, and they kind of like coming out of the institutional style, and they all went to this camp, and how they made civil rights changes for people with disabilities. So it's on Netflix. I don't know if you have Netflix, Bob, or
I do.
Ian, but
I do.
watch it tonight after. I don't know when we're filming, but I don't know when this will go. But watch it after your live stream that you'll have tonight, maybe. Yeah. So I think they did a really good job, because it's straightforward, and it tells. It's not glamorized at all. It's very good. So I think they're doing a better job. I think even now that sometimes disability has gotten into this, not as far as now media has gotten into sort of this everything is sort of uh you know what is the non-scripted TV, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
so what is it, what's the term for non-scripted TV? Everything.
Reality
Reality
TV.
TV.
Yeah. So even people. So I think one that gets really bad is, you were asking about really bad, was Born This Way. Just is out now, or was out a couple years ago, and it follows all these people that present with Down syndrome, and how they're trying to become their better selves, but
Mhm.
then it just becomes this sappy romance and fighting amongst each other, kind of like Real World with Disabilities. So, but that's a reality show. So I think that doesn't depict us in the best light. I think that
There's another Netflix show right now called Love on the Spectrum. Have you ever heard of that show? Did you watch that? I haven't watched it at all, but it comes up now and again, because I watch a lot of documentaries. So that show comes up now and again.
I've heard it. I've heard of it. I haven't watched it. I assume they have that. I assume they have autism.
Yeah.
Or they
And
so,
another
ahead.
movie. Did you ever see the movie called The Theory of Flight?
No.
Oh wow, with Kenneth Branagh. Oh man, and the wife of that famous weird director. He did
Helen Bonham Carter.
Yeah.
Who was? I don't think they still. I thought they were divorced at this point.
Okay. Well,
but was married to I know you're talking the guy who did Mars Attacks and
Batman
Batman
Returns.
Returns and yes.
Joel Schumacher.
No. He did Edward Scissorhands, and I'll know his name like a shot when I hear it. I'm just having a temporary. But Helen Bonham Carter was the woman who was herself married to Kenneth Branagh at one point as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. She was.
Yeah, and it'll come to me. So if I scream the name out in the next 10 minutes, bear with me.
But the theory, it's the theory called the theory of flight. You got to go look it up. You got to watch it. It's a very interesting show.
There is another movie that was good in the early 80s or late 70s was called Pinball. It's about people that are taken in this foster home and how they have disabilities and how they kind of all live together. And it was good. It had I want to say Jodie Foster, but I'm not sure. But you have you're typing everything, so are you looking that up? Pinball.
No, I think he's writing. I don't think he's typing. I'm
writing. Ian, I think he was talking to you because you were looking some stuff up.
I was talking to Ian.
Yeah.
No, I didn't look it up. Pinball. I'll look it up though.
Yeah, when I try to use my computer while I'm on Zoom, it's just too much for it and it crashes. That may have been why I was glitching before. Now that I think of it, because I was looking up this. John, are you familiar with an actor named Harold Russell?
Harold Russell. What was he in? I'm better than stuff in stuff. What was he in?
He was in a movie called The Best Years of Our Lives. It was one of those movies that came out right after World War II, and it's about the trials and tribulations the veterans went through when they got home.
Yes. Well, the one movie I did see about that, like that, was, of course, Born on the 4th of July.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we can't talk about those without talking about Born on the 4th of July. I don't know how we
gone this far without talking about it.
Yeah.
That was intense. That was a brilliant film. Again, I have a thing about people with disabilities, but I don't think anybody could have played it. I just see Tom Cruise in that role now. So, it's
right.
When they do a good job of that, but so it was very intense. Of course, Patch Adams was about disabilities as well. We've all seen Patch Adams, please.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Patch Adams, where he runs an enclave for basically a commune for ill people that saves his soul in the process, from wanting to be demised,
Mm-hmm.
So that was one that did it well without being too saccharine and overly hypey.
Right. Unfortunately, our time's getting away from us here. We got to kind of sew things up. I know that Thrash has got to get ready for his live show as well, and I just want to say to you, John, thank you for joining us on today's program. That means a lot. And we will, for those of you who are listening to this won't be out for a couple days, but I will be doing the Monday night show. And please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and on Thrash's channel as well. And Thrash, you've got a standing Thursday night live stream, don't you?
Yes, the way it works in one of two different ways. Our hero, Dave Sundstrom, traditionally does have a show at 8-ish and does his good stuff. When he does do his good stuff show, I do an after party, usually call it between 9:30 and 10 until whenever people get sick of hearing me talk. However, on weeks when he is overscheduled and isn't doing his live show on Thursdays, I come in around 8-ish. So either you'll see me after Dave or in lieu of Dave. But either way, you can see me on Thursday nights. In fact, I'm doing one tonight. I know you have your stand-up show tonight, so I won't see you. But Mr. John, I'm really hoping I see you tonight.
You will see me in spirit in the rerun. I'm in small groups with my church. So and they do Tuesday and Thursday, which are that I go to. So I miss Dave now when he does it, but I'm still all over everybody's channel, and we've become texting buddies. So we're in that way, Bob, you and I. So, and Ian, of course.
All right.
Also, I just want to say thank you for having me. And Ian, I didn't mean to get too feisty in the beginning. I didn't mean to devolve into Donahue or anything.
I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel that way at all. So.
Okay, good. So, all right. So you said we'll do the live in 2 weeks or so.
A week from this Monday. So whatever. So a week from Monday. So not this Monday, but the next Monday. I mean, God willing, unless something else happens. So thank you very much, John. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks, John. It was great having you with us today.
Thanks, Thrash, for being here as well.
I hope I wasn't too rambly. I hope.
No, you were great.
No, not at all. Not at all. We did an hour and nearly 10 minutes on the subject. So great going here. So, okay, well, folks, thank you very much. You guys know what to do. Show up for the live show. If you're listening to this on podcast, please write us a review and leave a rating. Those mean the world to us, and share it on your favorite social media. If you're watching this on YouTube, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and write a review, or not write a review, but leave a comment. Oh, I said comment. Anyway, also share it on your favorite social media. And if you're looking to support the show, you can follow the links below to our support there. So thank you very much, everyone. And take care and stay safe and stay retro.